Ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome the Acting Head of Unit, Cloud and Software at the DG Connect from the European Commission, Mr. Manuel Mateo Goyet.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much, Emma, for this joyful presentation, and a big thank you to everyone. First of all, to Anna for a patient and diligent organization, but in particular to my predecessors. Andreas took a lot of the complicated questions out of me. And like Mr. Greenspan was saying, if you hear anything different from me than what he said, it's because you've not listened well enough. So conscious of that, I've taken away every mention of UCS in this. If you want to rehear the same answers to the same questions, feel free to ask them. I'll gladly repeat them. With that away, a big thank you as well to Laurent for hosting us today, and for John for making quite a lot of comments that I wouldn't have made, but in less eloquent terms, in particular when it comes to this notion of sovereignty and the lack of proper definition, which is, of course, something that makes the whole exercise today very particular. Although Belgium has this art of knowing what a sovereign cloud is, if you were around the weather reports of yesterday. What I want to do today, and maybe with a couple caveats, is that I discovered, like you, the Draghi report only yesterday around noon. And I haven't seen the mission letters that were meant to appear tomorrow, and somehow of the next commissioners, and that somehow, I don't know if you were on your phone, seemed to be delayed by an extra few days. So I haven't seen them. So I'm speaking with the same amount of background information as you. And maybe a final remark on the Draghi report. I might refer to it a couple of times. It's not a commission document, so I'm not here to defend it. It will, of course, be a huge source of inspiration for at least for us, and I hope for you in the coming month. It means as well that here and there I might have a couple of personal comments, and I insist on the personal in the sense that I have had the time to read it, but not yet of commenting and sharing thoughts with plenty of colleagues as we usually do. So what I'm going to cover now is really the, where are we now, early September, ahead of a season of transition, what we've achieved in the previous mandate, what are the pending things, in addition to UCS, and a little bit what our mindset is at the moment of starting the next stage. The next political cycle. The background, I mean, you're all cloud professionals. There's nothing on those slides that you haven't seen or heard before. In short, the European cloud industry, or rather the state of cloud in the EU, is in a quite particular situation. You have, on the one hand, the market size growing and rather exponentially still, despite already its huge footprint, and at the same time, the share of European cloud providers diminishing. If the two curves were going in the same direction, the share growing in a growing market, or why not in another industry, a share getting smaller in a shrinking market, that would be less of a concern. But of course, this is a quite annoying situation, and you can look at this into I mean, there are many graphs and a lot of consultancies and a lot of economists who are looking at this, but the outcome, the figures vary a little bit, but the trend and the overall size are not too different. You know the names of the big ones, of course, the so-called hyperscalers. And I know that among them there are quite a lot of differences, and some don't consider themselves as hyperscalers and so on. But I think this is more for a coffee break discussion. Maybe I'll come back to the cloud adoption in a moment, elaborating on what John said earlier. The figures are steadily going up, but it's not the same across all the geographies and all market segments. I'll come back to that in a second. And the cloud market outlook for Europe is, as I was saying earlier, it works against a context of a background of exponential growth. I think it translates in like this in terms of business or market size, but it translates into the brick and mortar part as well, the data center footprint and install capacity, which is usually rather measured in megawatts or terawatts, is as well increasing. Part of what my team does as well is the green dimension of this, which is not the core of today's discussion, but is obviously very important. At the beginning of this political cycle, we were at around 3.5% of Europe's energy demand going into data centers. We had forecasted that this would grow up to of course, it was a forecast, so it was within a frame in between 6 to 10, and it looks by the end of the decade, and it looks like we might be well above those 10% well before the end of the decade. So the footprint and the outlook for increased cloud/data center capacity in Europe is really materializing. Of course, the difference as well is that by now, in 2020, almost the end of 2024, the outlook on things that take 4 to 5 years to build is much more safe than forecasts made 5 years ago. And so that looks like a rather solid forecast, and no surprise there. What has changed in those 4 or 5 years is the advent of powerful AI solutions. But again, things you are quite familiar with. You are as well quite familiar with the two, I would call them the two official cloud targets. One of them is the deployment, or rather the market adoption by companies of cloud. This is set at 75%. There was already some exchanges earlier. The figures are different across regions, so we're around 40 and a few percent, but with huge discrepancies depending on the geography. Like in many other digital areas, the Nordics are almost close to 75%. But again, a lot of disparity across the regions. And what is often forgotten is that the 75% is every single company in Europe. So it is as well, I mean, the baseline for measurement, the 100% covers as well, you know, your bakery at the corner, the one-person plumber company, so it covers those things. And the way we measure this is through statistical offices, national surveys, so it's extremely serious and formatted, and it goes through surveys of thousands and thousands of companies who answer questions. Do you use online emails? Do you use online billing? Do you have a website present? And so on and so on. It's not do you use cloud, but it's an inference of the answer to those questions. Will we ever get to 100%? I don't know. Is 75 the right figure? it is what it is. Would 70% be satisfactory? Would 80 be more better? I think this is a bit. It's not the core of the question. I think is the question is rather, are we heading in the right direction? Is innovation pervasive in the economy, not only in the lead tech companies, etc.? And I think if you take the largest European companies, I don't know, the Eurostock 600 or something like this, you would probably get to 100% of cloud adoption there today. The other one, which is not about adoption but about deployment, is the deployment of 10,000 edge nodes. So this is what's a bit intermediary in between. It's the proximity cloud. It's the cloud with a low latency. It's the cloud where your mobile is not interrogating a data center in Ireland to retrieve your emails, but it's about the car driving autonomously with a mini data center located only a few kilometers away. This is an example. The autonomous driving is a clear example of that. But anything that has a real-time video requirement is one of them. In the entertainment segment, if you want in a stadium, whether in the context of a concert or a security alarm, or in again a stadium in a context of a concert or a sport game. If you want everyone to have a replay on the phone, you cannot rely on this replay flying back from 1,000 kilometers away. You need the data center to be in the vicinity of the stadium. So those are a few examples. The latest figures are from last summer. In short, there's quite a lot of experiments across Europe. This is from an industrial point of view, it's at the Venn diagram is somewhere in between cloud providers and telecom providers. Many of those initiatives are rather led by telecom providers, but relying on cloud operators to provide the computing capacity behind the connectivity. But differences apply. Some are partnering, some are trying by themselves. There's a lot of flavors. There's not, at the moment, very few limited commercial deployments. I gave a couple of common citizen examples, but there are numerous industrial examples. I think you've all seen one way or another huge logistic centers, how they operate at the moment with the self-guided robots and everything connected, the trays, the products themselves, what's happening in those logistical centers. That works at the moment in based on rather on Wi-Fi, and it works well because it's huge companies who have huge IT departments to do that for themselves. But if you want the same technology to be deployed in a context of SMEs who don't have the same IT departments, to put it like this, you need this to be provided instead of through Wi-Fi only, to be provided through a mixture of 5G or at least 5G and possibly as well Wi-Fi. And for that, you need someone else than your IT department to provide the infrastructure. And this is what industrial edge means, and this is what the 10,000 looks at. This is the background in terms of objectives. Those are objectives for 2030. They remain valid until the next person says we need different objectives for another year, for another period, or we need to rebrand them, reshape them. There's, I don't know, I don't have a crystal ball, but looking backwards, every single college, in at least the 4 last ones, have set new objectives along their course. It would make sense as well that, you know, simply because the inertia of measures, I think it would politely makes sense that a college looking only at 2030 as a perspective is a bit short-sighted, typically, because political action takes more time. You want a further perspective, so looking beyond that. But again, not a crystal ball, just a mirror to what happened in the past. What did we do already? So colleagues before me have mentioned the Data Governance Act, the Data Act, the AI Act, etc. Let me delve into a few of them. The title was about legislation, but I put on a slide about investment. We've been investing over the last 5 years a bit more than 7 billion of public money in the EU. The order of words is important because a lot of that budget was distributed through RRF, where it's not EU budget, or rather a particular part of the EU budget. I can go back through each of those, but this has been a huge part of our work in the last 5 years. 7 and almost $500 million looks like a lot of money. In Mr. Draghi's report of yesterday, he speaks about 15 billion per year until the end of the decade. So you've seen the headline of 800 billion per year, because a lot of journalists have forgotten the per year in the reporting. When it comes to cloud, it's a 15 billion out of those 800. So it gives you a sense of the magnitude of the investment needs and against what we managed to achieve this time. But again, this is investment. I'll focus on the rest. The Data Act was undoubtedly the big thing on which we work, especially at the moment of regulating this. The GDPR, the free flow of data regulation, that was the previous college, but that's very important. Maybe complementing Andreas, the origin of coming up with a cybersecurity certification scheme came in the context of the free flow of data regulation, when member states agreed to have a space for the circulation of the free flow of non-personal data within Europe. They said, yes, but we need to trust each other, and so we need a common an harmonized system to trust each other, and this is EUCS, and that's the, if you want, the regulatory origin of this. But of course, the legal base is the Cybersecurity Act that Andreas detailed. So, looking into the Data Act. A few of the elements of which we are working on and have been enacted there. So it's both things. They've been enacted and now we're moving into enforcement and monitoring. So I know a lot of the Brussels bubble is speaking about we've had enough regulation, we need to enforce and monitor. So now it's all about enforcement and monitoring, what I'm going to present here. The idea is those 3 Fs, free, fast, and fluid switching. The idea that there should be no cost in and no barriers in companies switching from one cloud provider to another. This is something that is already enacted, that is progressively coming into force, and for which the Commission, we've just signed the study. So this is something that we will be monitoring. The study that will allow us to monitor the prices for the foreseeable future is around the corner. In the context of sovereignty, there are those powerful articles in the Data Act which are precisely about preventing unlawful access to data. This is something that is often overlooked in the UCS debate. And I think it's for a question of chronology. UCS started before the Data Act was even put forward and negotiated. But those measures will soon kick in, and this is, I think, an important piece of the overall puzzle. More things about Data Act is we're developing standard contractual clauses. So this is more in the B2B dimension. So it is this idea that because there is an asymmetry in the size of the in a typical client to provide a relationship in the cloud services area, it would be helpful to develop standard contractual clauses that presumably smaller clients would be able to demand in their cloud contracts with the cloud providers. This is work that has been going on for now a year and a half, if my memory serves me well, for which there are some, there's a proposal on the table which is being assessed in real cases, in real contractual negotiations as we speak, and out of which the Commission will then formalize them later on. I'll skip that one, and then I already mentioned the switching charges, but there's another big kid on the block coming, which is that box there at the bottom, which is the question of interoperability of data processing services. Traditionally, interoperability has gone through usually standardization, right? That's what standardization is all about. But the Data Act introduces an important element, which is what you see there, the second bullet point, the open interoperability specification. So it's not standards. If you're familiar with the how software was deployed or not standardized, but was harmonized from a technical point of view, a lot has not gone through classic standardization, and it's a recognition of that. The Data Act puts forward a whole set of mechanisms to recognize those as valid technical specifications, and to put forward a central repository. So this is something that we have now started to do. It comes with two aspects. First is to put in place the repository and the procedures to feed it, and then of course it's the identification of those standards and specifications. Two further things that are not necessarily anchored in the Data Act is one thing is the cloud rulebook, which is a pending assignment from the strategy of 4 and something years ago, which is to have a compendium of existing regulation and norms, but not with new ones. Again, with a view of helping rather the demand side of the cloud to know where to go to find all those norms and standards. And guidance on cloud public procurement. This guidance rather hints to a recommendation than at regulation. This is the idea that there are tens of thousands of public procurers in Europe, large organizations such as, I don't know, the Commission or big ministries typically have big professional procurement centers and supported by knowledgeable IT specialists. But if you go down to, I don't know, take a city of the size of 10, 20, 50,000 inhabitants, presumably their respective departments are much smaller and their expertise is much lighter. And so the idea here is to provide templates or a bit of guidance on how to specify those criteria. It sounds terribly not funny, but it's terribly helpful for them to have. You will have noted in Mr. Draghi's report that he goes further than the recommendation. Yesterday in his report, he speaks about making this hard law. So again, I'm just referring this so that you know what to look for. This is something on which which we will discuss internally with our new commissioner in the weeks to come. Voilà, this is it. Still time for a few questions on UCS if you insist, or on the rest. Thank you very much.
Many thanks, Manuel. So
it's tough not to cough. But
no, it was well done. So we're going to take one question from the audience over here, and we have one already online. So the first question is digital sovereignty in Europe about politics or technology?
I mean, the academic answer is that it's about, so first it's both, but it's not only about technology, it's as well about organizational, so it's legal, technical, and organizational. And when looking at the, companies here in the room often come to tell us we've nailed it. This is our sovereign cloud solution. Maybe John didn't mention it earlier, but there's quite a bit of marketing around the concept of sovereignty. This was something that did not exist 5 years ago, and I think every single cloud provider now has a sovereign solution, which is better than all the other ones, and this is the real sovereignty with us. When they come to present it to us, the tests are you technologically sovereign? Can you? How do you define it? But then as well, the legal and organizational. This is where on the legal and organizational you see some cloud providers providing cloud operated only by EU nationals on specific employment contracts where they're not allowed themselves to accept extra requests from outside the EU to hand over data. So it's a bit of both, but it's certainly, it needs to be a bit of both, of the three.
Yeah, thank you very much. And one question from the audience over here. Hands up, and we will come up with the mic. Or maybe one of the previous questions that was for Andreas, but now going to Manuel.
Andreas, you did a great job, I think.
Yes. All right. Thank you very much, Manuel.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. So.